book club. Okay, David. I'm gonna just get right into it. In your book, there's a quote that says, "Shame hides us both from others and from ourselves, preventing self-awareness as well as self-love." So
Mhm.
I'm curious if you can tell me more about that, and then, I mean, you can even speak to the grander philosophy of your book as well on that note.
It's really important what you're bringing up because many people have learned that shame is only this agonizing feeling. You see me peeing and I don't know you, or right, and I'm like, oh my gosh, right? So, and I'm humiliated in a sense, right? Or you've seen something about me. Oh, you found this out about me, and I'm something like, people may not be able to see it. I'm like covering up my body. I don't want you to see me, right? So shame has that kind of agony to it. But most shame is not like that. Most people don't even know that shame is operating, actually. So even though if you read the popular, the most really good literature on shame, they'll give examples like the one I just gave you. Oh my gosh, you saw that I actually, overeat ice cream and I acted like I'm a really together person, and right, something like that, whatever it is. Or I tease my wife in hurtful ways sometimes, and I'm unconscious about that. That's true, by the way. Sometimes I give her a jab and I'm unaware that I'm doing that. So then you'd be like, oh my gosh. Then I can't believe it. How people see me, I want to hide. But most shame is totally unconscious. I'll give you lots of examples. Let's say you're a really, really intelligent woman. I'm saying that about you. It could be a man. You have a really strong intelligence of your own kind, but you were never supported to have intelligence. For instance, I'll give you examples that I've seen many times. Let's say you grew up in a rather patriarchally oriented family and you had a brother as a sibling. And then the brother would speak up and your parents would like, oh, wow, thank you, Joe, right? You can go to college. Maybe you can go on. Maybe you can go to graduate school. But then as a woman, they might not give you that. That's just one example. So now your intelligence is put down by not being seen, but you may not recognize that as a hurt. You may just take in as people don't listen to me. Maybe I'm not that smart. How come I feel bad about myself when I'm in school? So you're having difficult feelings in school, but you're not thinking that your intelligence itself is veiled by shame. It's covered over, it's hidden from you. You don't think you're intelligent. So you're not walking around thinking, I feel full of shame. You're just walking around thinking, I'm not very smart, or I'm working harder to be smart, but you don't think shame is operating. So in that case, your intelligence itself is hidden, but you're not walking around going, I'm in agony about my shame. Mhm. Yeah, you have a thought I can see. What do you
Yeah,
think?
it
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of if you have chronic symptoms, like physical symptoms that are really acute, and it screams and it demands your attention, maybe is parallel to like someone walking in on you peeing, like you said, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so
Yes.
embarrassed, you saw me. And then there's like chronic low level dysregulation where you're kind of just always having a stomach ache, but it's so chronic that you don't even realize it's there. And that
Yes.
just reminds me of, like you said, you just don't think you're smart because there's a layer of shame.
That's right. Most chronic symptoms have a layer of shame, sometimes very strong. Two kinds of shame around chronic symptoms. One, let's say I have fatigue or body pains. Fatigue often goes with chronic inflammations of kinds. We know that, in immune issues. So let's say I have some levels of fatigue or a body pain. One kind of shame is I can't keep up with the culture that I think I should keep up with. I can't work as hard. I can't be as productive. I'm not as with my children as many hours in a really focused, attentive way. And because I can't meet that norm, I think, what's wrong with me? I'm a terrible parent. I'm not a worthy person. I can't produce as much. So there's that layer of shame. Okay. Now here's the second layer of shame. Those symptoms that a person have have intelligence in them about how to live. But instead of thinking, what's in there? What does this mean for me? What kind of person am I? What kind of sensitivities do I have? Do I notice things about the earth? Are my breathing lungs that feel asthmatic connected to the loss of trees? Am I countercultural in terms of how to live that's not so capitalistic and productivity oriented? Instead of thinking that, I go on a healing journey to get rid of those symptoms. So, yes, please get relief. If you can get relief, please do. I'm not against relief supplements, taking inhalers if you have asthma. But if you look at your symptoms only as if something's wrong with me, I need to get rid of those symptoms, then the intelligence of those symptoms and the potential voice and message you have for yourself and the world around you are veiled by shame. I don't think I'm an intelligent, sensitive person to the world who has a message. I think I'm a person who's screwed up, who should go to doctors and healers, mainstream or non-mainstream, to get better. Something's wrong with me replaces the fact that maybe I had know something about the world.
Yeah, even when you say that, like there's something wrong with me, I feel that like a clench in my chest of like something's wrong with me, and it's like a physiology of hermiting away that feels like shame.
Yes,
Whereas, like you said, maybe it's your body telling you something's, I'm sensitive and I'm in tune with my needs basically, even if that's not up to par with the expectations of a capitalistic culture.
that's right. I
Yeah.
worked with one woman, and I'm mentioning gender twice on, but we don't have to stay there. In the issue of gender and sexism and internalized misogyny, we don't have to stay there, but it's not unimportant. In my first story about intelligence, has an internalized oppression. That's part of that system. It's not only a parent, right? There's a system, and if that's not noticed, shame enters. But I'm thinking of a particular woman um, who had lots of body pain, and she did lots of things to address that, as she should, right? Or needs to, or wants to. It should be free. So she talks to medical doctors. Can they find something? Let's take some MRIs to see what's going on. They didn't find something, but it's good to pursue. I care about myself. I don't want to be in pain, and many other kinds of forms of medicines. So when I work with her, then I say, feel your symptoms and what it's like to have them. And when she goes into that, she starts experiencing a profoundly exquisite sensitivity, like little things affect me. That makes
Mm,
sense. So my body is very sensitive when I really feel the essence of my symptom. I'm tired. I go into that and I'm like, oh, a little bit is too much for me. Be a person that a little bit, quote unquote, is too much for. I'm exquisitely sensitive. She didn't use that word, but that's exquisite. She said sensitive. I used the word exquisite because
I
it's
like
like
that.
that. And then I said, if you just believe in being an exquisitely sensitive person, tell me about who you are. How would you live? And she says, by the way, I talk to plants. When I see animals walk by, they all come near me because they feel safe around me. Makes me cry just saying that.
I know that makes me emotional too.
Isn't that profound? So,
Mhm.
yeah, I just want to weep about that. It's so,
I know I felt that just like
yeah,
she's safe.
yeah.
Beings feel
Isn't that
safe
incredible
around her.
that this thing called a chronic symptom, when we unfold it and allow its intelligence to come out, is a person who's not only a sick person needing healing, she's connected to things. I'm not connected to the plants as well as she is. I'm not putting myself down. I'm connected to other things. Animals don't come over to me when I walk down the street, but they do her. Even
Hmm.
deer show up out of the woods around her. So,
Wow.
what is this quality that blooms into sensitivity and symptoms? Is it an illness? In some sense, yes, she needs relief. Or
Mm,
is she a seer? Is she a canary in the coal mine? Is she a shaman of a kind that connects
mm.
in ways that I don't connect? And if we miss the second part, What an injustice we do to her, thinking of her as something that's as a sick person to pathologize. You have a pathology, you
Mm,
do medicine. And even non-conventional healing industry would still treat her as a set of symptoms to relieve, not as a symptom set with intelligence that is meant to be offered. She's becomes my teacher. I'm not her healer
mm.
anymore. She's my healer, waking me up to things that I'm unaware of.
That's I actually on that point too. There's something that makes me really uncomfortable in the coaching, in the healing space, and it's this power dynamic that happens with the people who know more and then the people
Mhm.
that come to them for healing. And I think it's not always like this, and that's why I really enjoy somatics because I feel more invited to go into my own experience than someone telling me what I
Agreed.
need to do.
Yeah.
But just your mention of pathologizing, I know I've experienced shame in sessions with coaches or even therapists where I don't feel like they're sitting with me as a human. They
Mhm.
want to treat me. And it's kind of interesting that in these spaces where we go for relief, we can experience shame. That
Yeah.
kind of sucks.
I
Yeah.
like the way you say that. It kind of sucks.
It that sucks. Yeah. I mean, I
Mhm.
you can't, control everything, but yeah, that does kind of suck.
Because shame needs to be revisioned and understood for what it actually is. That's why I speak about it not only being a difficult feeling. Shame is a paradigm that we live within. So we're almost always taking our difficulties, call them symptoms, patterns in my life I want to get rid of, feelings I would not like to have, addictive tendencies that I want to overcome, physical experiences that I don't shouldn't have, relationship dynamics that I want to get over. So when those happen, my first impulse is within the paradigm, which is what's wrong? What should I do about it? Did I
Mm,
do this? Did I eat too much ice cream? Is that what kept
mhm,
me up? Am I getting headaches because of this? Maybe I need to run more. Maybe I need to work on my trauma. Please do, by the way. I have sections in the book on trauma. I think it's a super important thing. But the orientation, something is causing this difficulty. And if I could address that cause and make it go away, I wouldn't have difficulty. People say to me when I say that, what other way are there to think, David? Like, don't you want to find the cause and get rid of it? What if what created your difficulty was a seed that lived inside of you that was unbloomed? If you were pregnant and you knew you were pregnant, let's imagine it's a relatively healthy pregnancy, and you said, "Ah, having a hard time sleeping because I can't roll. Every so often I get cramps. My hormones are doing weird things to my systems." I wouldn't think you were sick. I would, if you can get relief, I'd want you to get relief, right? But I would want
mhm,
to give you an understanding. The understanding is talk to other women. I'm a guy, I haven't lived in that particular body. I've just listened to them. Read books. Get to know the body experiences that women have when they're pregnant and the difficulties, the hormonal difficulties, the body stretches, the pains and cramps. Those are not symptoms of an illness. That's you becoming the next you and in life and something growing inside of you that will emerge at some point. Imagine looking at symptoms that way.
that's
You're not a
interesting.
sick person. That person's sensitivity wanted to be born. She still has it, but she doesn't believe in it as a wonderful thing. She doesn't think when she's tired, she needs to talk to plants and animals, but she does. She knows that. I would never suggest that. I don't know that. Now I might because I heard her, but somebody else may be different. So if we're outside of the allopathic paradigm, you have something wrong, let's figure it out and get rid of it. And an unshaming paradigm says the symptoms that live in you are not only something to get rid of, they're you. If you want to get rid of it, you're getting rid of you. Okay, here's a really important example relative to the shame around what's called the inner child. Most people think of an inner child and their association is to a wounded child. My inner child is
Oh
was
yeah.
unseen and abused. I have that. I have a father who was violent. I've said many times he used fists and belts to express his rage. It was a very unsafe place,
Mm,
really, constantly. That was my experience. Okay. So if I contact my child, oh, I see your hand on your feeling, but thank you.
mhm,
Moment to notice someone that means something to you.
mhm.
It's touching. Yeah. Just your hand moving to your chest, to your heart area. Then something inside says, oh, it it matters. You matter, David. That's an unshaming message.
Mm,
You stopped me. You didn't stop me, but your body pauses me.
mhm.
Let me know that I matter. My humanity matters to you. And that's so beautiful. Thank you for
It's
that.
so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's say, back to that example, let's say the
Yeah.
child now, uh, I'll talk about myself. I got stomach aches a lot. If I write about that on Instagram, lots of people will tell me about stomach aches and other things. But I got the
Mhm,
stomach aches so bad that my parents had to take me to the hospital a number of times and they never find anything, quote unquote. They're not
mhm,
finding the stuff of stomach aches in that a medical doctor can find. I can tell you why I got stomach aches. I was frightened and in cramps. And my system had no better way to say ouch and scream than to have stomach aches.
mhm,
System had no better way to say, I need help, get me out of here.
mhm.
It worked. Somebody said, you need help, and we're taking you out of here. Does it make sense? So it didn't work to solve the whole problem, but you see the intelligence of my stomach aches.
Totally.
So now if we go back to my inner child and we say, oh, my child had stomach aches, or I had a lot of pain, we need to relieve my pain. And you don't learn about the connection to those stomach aches and the message, I'm in pain, get me out of here. That's my stomach's message. If you don't hear that message and you just think, oh, let me soothe that inner child. Beautiful. I want to be soothed, right? Let me hold you. Oh, I'm sorry you feel
Mhm,
this way. Is there something we can do? Maybe we can give you something sweet. Maybe we can give you a massage. Lovely. But can you hear how all those interventions have never heard a message? So in that way, the stomach itself and its statement is not being heard. And that will live now because I'll still get stomach ache sometimes. Right? I've been diagnosed with IBS, right? Irritable bowel syndrome. In one way, be careful with foods and care for yourself, David,
mhm,
which I do. But with all that understanding about IBS, I won't say this is true for everyone with IBS, but for many, here's what's missing. My stomach is the smartest part of me. It kind of goes, ooh, my stomach is getting a little, what's going on? Am I feeling a little unsafe?
mm,
Maybe this is a new
mhm,
situation. Maybe that person isn't only good for you and you noticed it and are dismissing it, David. My stomach is now not needing to be healed by me. My stomach is my teacher. I'm not healing my stomach. My stomach is healing me. I'm not healing my inner child. My inner child is healing me, reminding me of how to live more gracefully and beautifully.
mhm.
Unshaming flips that on its head.
Yeah. I experienced I've experienced a lot of chronic neck pain to the point where I
Oh,
would be in bed. I
mm,
did I was in a car accident, blah blah blah, but I had the neck pain like long before that.
yes,
And when I started getting into somatics, in somatics they invite you to ask
yeah,
the sensation, like what are you trying to tell me or what
yeah.
they get curious about it. And my neck pain is only there now ever when I'm over exerting myself socially. So if I like and it happens still every now and then, but it's like you said, it's my body saying like, "Hey, we've either gone way past
Hmm.
my capacity or I'm about to overexert myself." And it's kind of a gift because it's this super clear way that my body tells me like, "Hey, well, I'm not enjoying this."
So important. I love that story.
Mhm. And you mentioned boundaries before we recorded,
Yeah, I
and
was
I feel
just
like
thinking of
this
that
is
as we were
just
talking. Sorry, I
yeah,
talked about you. I'm a New Yorker. I do that sometimes. Go ahead. I'm listening.
um I just feel like this is a great place to bring that idea in because I mean, it sounds like your stomach was giving you, asking for a boundary in some way or space from whatever it was that was causing the tension. So I'm curious how this idea of unshaming can be applied to the concept of boundaries.
Yeah, such a, the more I think about boundaries, the deeper the issue seems. Boundaries are so fundamental. It's not just I need to learn a boundary with this person or that. Boundaries are a fundamental and organic response to almost every living organism. Maybe rocks too, I don't know. But I'm joking a little bit, but I like rocks.
I think rocks do have boundaries. I mean, they're hard.
They're pretty good at it, actually, you know.
Yeah.
But organic systems respond to various levels of violation. For some reason, I'm on Instagram is showing me snake videos lately, you know, and there's somebody who goes near a snake, and then the snake does those beautiful protective motions. They rear their bodies and heads backward, and then
Yeah.
they hiss, and then they make this striking motion, even if they're not venomous. They make that
Mhm.
like, that's it. Don't come near. I had a dog for a while, Maya. She was a Rottweiler. It's not a huge one, but she was like 80 pounds of muscle, right? And I once saw her get next to this non-venomous, like little snake. Compared to her, it's like a peanut, right?
Mhm.
She would go near it, and that snake did that motion because it's innate. That's its way of saying, no, back off. This is the line, right? And then Maya would jump back, like jump, and then she'd move towards it again, and then she'd jump back. And it was so beautiful to watch, like this big dog and this little snake developing a relationship. Like, how close can I get? Only this close. And they did this back and forth for a while. And we see that with all animals. And we have that inside of us. As you know, because you're a somatics practitioner. If you do something that violates my space, my being, my system will do its best to generate a boundary. If it's a hand moving close to my face, I'll either duck, move my head away, or I'll lift my hands up. Right?
Mm.
My body will do something if it's free. My system will do something if it's free. It will do that even if it's not an obvious violation. Like if you said, can't we meet at 2 hours earlier, David?
And I'm like, well,
Right. And then you'd be
mhm.
like, well, okay, but something inside of you will be saying, not only, but you may be like, well, I need to because of making money, or whatever the reasons are. I should be this way, or I'm a nice person, or I've been trained to be a certain kind of person and gender. That means I shouldn't say no. So all kinds of reasons why you would bypass that organic response. In this case, it wouldn't be like, hey, don't violate me. It would be, "No, I really can't make it at that time, unless I became an asshole about it." So something happens, then your system naturally responds as a way of living. It creates those boundaries for space, for safety, for this is what my wellness system looks like. How come people have a difficult time then? If it's organic, it's kind of natural. How come people have a hard time? That's because the boundary impulse itself has been shamed. It's veiled.
Mhm.
So you don't have to develop boundaries. We need to unshame them because your system naturally has them. You know when you've gone too far. Your neck knows it still. So the neck still says, I know it's too far. You may forget, right? My belly says, David, you may not know when you're unsafe, but I'll tell you, right? And I say, thank you, belly, right, for doing
Mhm.
that. So our systems have it. We don't need to learn boundaries. We need to unshame those impulses that live inside of us so that we can trust ourselves, build self-trust. Maybe it's okay for somebody else to do that. But my system says no in my body or some other place I recognize. In my intuition would be for some people, in my feelings would be for some people, but the body is such a great place to go for that counsel.
It
Mhm.
reminds me of I love disgust. Like I really love the emotion disgust.
Uh,
I didn't always, But it reminds me of like if you're at dinner, I was an exchange student when I was 18 and I was living
Oh,
with host families in Belgium, and they give you food and you eat it and you're maybe like, "Oh, I don't like this," but you can't show your disgust, right?
oh,
'Cause
okay.
that's rude. You don't want to be
Yeah,
impolite. Or, someone tells you so, or someone makes a nasty joke and you feel disgust, but you're like, oh, I should probably laugh at this. So they,
right,
like me. And it just
right.
really feels connected to this.
Yeah. The,
Mm-hmm.
the unshaming investigation leads to these questions. If our system naturally has a boundary making system, just like the snake doesn't have, I don't know what the snake literally thinks, but its body and system does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Maya jumps back naturally. She doesn't have to think, oh, this is danger, right? They're all this, they do it all by themselves without any interruption. So why then do we not have that? Where did it go? Where did that system get turned off? The boundary making system to get turned off. And there's two main places that if you work in unshaming way, meaning believe in people and their intelligence, not try to get them over things, not say you should have boundaries, but just finding them inside. One, they've had early experiences of the boundary being forbidden.
Mm,
Could be a violent situation, right? Where if you do something, David, if you tell and stop me, there'll be consequences, something like that. Or don't you speak back to me? Or
mm,
my father had this statement I didn't realize many people used. I'll give you something to cry about. So if you
mm,
threaten me with a fist, and I was a little one, I would weep. I go, ah! And then he says, there's going to be a consequence. You will get more injured. Yeah,
mm-hmm,
I wrote about that, and a bunch of people said, me too, me too. I'm like, oh, the Me Too story. I didn't know that that was like a thing. So if there's a consequence that forbids the boundary. I can't say no. I can't speak back. I can't walk away. Don't you turn away from me. How dare you talk back to me? And
mm-hmm,
worse, if I'm not, or I'm just frozen because I'm too scared of you, right? I'm not allowed um, to do that. So the boundaries impulse lives inside of me, but it's forbidden, and then it stays forbidden. The other thing that's more subtle is this, and you're implying it in some way earlier. Let's say let's say I'm a parent or a culture or a teacher, somebody that you rely on for some level of care. You need something from me. Let's stay with the parent idea, but I like to be careful around parents because parents take too much of a heavy rap, and I think it's unfair.
mm,
My father's responsible for his brutality and not letting him off the hook. He didn't develop those ideas by himself, right? Again, he's not
mm,
off the hook. Somebody should have stopped him. He deserves all my fire and all that. Um, but let's say as a parent, now that person does something that generates a boundary in me. Maybe it's a laugh. Maybe it's the way they touch me. Maybe it's the atmosphere around them. But now I need something from that person.
mm, mm-hmm.
Uh-oh,
Yeah.
trouble. I need something from you that's foundational. Maybe it's the milk from the mother's breast. Maybe it's my father's protection. Maybe it's his being nice to me because it's always scary.
Or your boss at work. I
Oh,
know
my
those are
boss at
really
work.
important.
Thank you. Or the protection of a police or
Mm,
a nurse and doctor to treat my pain like it matters and not to be upset with me.
mm,
Right? Women of color get treated really badly. People of color in
mm-hmm,
hospital settings. I need somebody to take my pain seriously. And I don't want to upset the doctor because they're already less likely to treat me in a fully human way. So all these systems operate. Now I'm in a double bind.
mm-hmm,
Set my boundary, I might not get the medical treatment I need, or the love I need, or having somebody treat me with respect like a teacher when I'm vulnerable to being looked at a certain way. That's huge. And yet, so my boundary system comes up, but the need comes up. What do I do with that? Most people, when they're young, aren't thinking that through. Their bodies and systems are resolving that. One way of resolving that is to bypass the boundary because the need is really important.
mm-hmm,
Now, what happens with the boundary impulse? There's still an impulse in me, right? To say no, to back away, to cover up, to run away, to tell you, leave me alone. What happens with that energy? it somatizes,
Mm-hmm.
becomes body symptoms. So now I have this energy in me that has a no in it. If it's big no or many times over and over and over, it builds up. It can be quite a cramp or an
Mm-hmm.
energy or tumor like. I don't want to say all tumors come from that, but some apparently do. And there's medical research. Gabor Mate did research about that. Um, so there's people have symptoms now. I had stomach aches. Somebody else may get something else. If you're sexually violated and you're not allowed to respond, you may get tumors in the genital area or cramps or all kinds of things that people get that people kind of go, we don't know what to do. Why do people have these symptoms, right? So the boundary making impulse lives in us, but I'm either forbidden or the need versus the boundary are putting me into a cramp, literally. Yes and no lives inside of me. So when
Mm-hmm.
process a boundary problem from an unshaming point of view, instead of saying, let me teach you how to have boundaries, that can be really helpful. We say, you already have boundary making in you. Let's go into your experience, then we'll find out those stories and those energies. Then your system will do boundaries the way you do them, not the way David does them. David's a New Yorker. He goes, hey, yo, somebody else would run away. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right way, but your boundary making system will be online. There'll be some unshaming. I noticed again, I was looking away and I was talking, but I looked at you and your eyes closed when I was talking about, was it sexual violation that you,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, don't want to pass over your, you went inside somewhere to connect with something. What can you say?
Yeah, I was just, I mean, I think it's so connected. Because this is somatics. This is like exactly somatic experiencing, processing the unmetabolized boundary.
Yeah.
And the idea of, well, I have 10,000 no's that my body wanted to say, but I swallowed the impulse. It's like that energy doesn't disappear. And so it makes sense that it manifests as pain or tumors or anxiety or something because
Yeah.
it just makes sense. And when I think about some of my own experiences that I've had in session and for somatic experiencing, they're big. Some of them are really big. And sometimes, like, I mean, I have experienced major rage where I've wanted to beat the crap out of people. And in a
Mhm.
session, you do that. You like grab, you're not actually grabbing a person, but you imagine
Yes.
grabbing them and it's so powerful. And you
Hmm.
just kind of wonder, like after doing that in a session, I'm like, I don't want to just have that alive in me, like running wild. Like I don't want that
Hmm.
trapped in me because that's really powerful, especially if it's not under my conscious control, you know?
Yeah. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
You're using the word powerful. Because one of the things that gets locked in the soma, shamed, meaning hidden to other people and hidden to oneself, are all these strong experiences like rage and anger, which have fire and power to them. We
Hmm.
say, oh, don't be angry. Don't be so angry. Nobody did anything that was so bad. Why are you dramatic? Go release your anger so it's not here. Go to your room and come back when you're happier. So
Hmm.
all these, oh, that's an angry person. That's a
I
judgment.
actually feel anger just hearing those words.
Wow,
Hmm.
that's great. Those are shaming ideas. Anger is
Hmm.
a bad thing. It's an illness. It's a symptom of an illness. Let's make it go away. As opposed to, I'm looking at a powerful woman right now who's invited me onto her podcast. She's got a real amount of power in her. I wonder how that power gets used. You said consciously used. Where does she need it? Where will she use it? Where is she free to use it? So good that you got in touch with it again. Write a book with it. Make more podcasts of it. Make your voice stronger about it. Tell a person no. Get up later when you're supposed to do so. I don't know, whatever you do, whatever that power wants to do for you.
Well, that actually, there's a few things I really want to touch on, and this is
Yeah,
one of
go
them.
ahead. I'm following you.
Is, well, when you were saying those those very common quips about anger, which is like, don't be angry. Being angry is, you want to. This is something I hear a lot in the alternative healing space is like, I need to let go of my anger or rise above my anger. And I have a background, I know, like
I
literally
know. I gotta
disgust.
wince.
I
I'm like,
feel
oh my God.
disgust. I have a background in the church. And one
Mm,
thing I heard a lot, because I experienced a lot of bullying in school, was I would come home crying and my mom would say, honey, you need to really find it in your heart to forgive them.
wow.
Don't be mad.
Mm,
And I mean, the idea of shame in the church, they really nail I mean, sexual shame, shame about anger, shame about your body. They did a great job, like just from a pure breadth
master
perspective.
shamers, right? Yeah.
What's that?
Master shamers or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
like well done, church.
Mm.
So I'm just curious, I know you have a chapter in the book on was it religious trauma?
There's stories about that. I'm not sure if there's a whole chapter,
Oh, okay.
but there's
Um,
stories about, yeah,
but yeah, I'm just curious how shame connects to the experience of religious trauma, which I know a lot of people listening have experienced.
yeah. What a deep topic, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What a deep topic. Phew. Yeah. Who I'm thinking of, I mean,
Yeah, take your time.
so many different directions, the overwhelming amount of child abuse, sexual abuse of youth, child abuse of youth, right? The overwhelming amount of abuse that is hidden makes me weep. The
Mm-hmm. I
studies
know.
that have done, like looking at in the United States, looking at one state, one part of one state, Pennsylvania, and I can't remember what the numbers are, like thousands of cases, like it's literally like hundreds of clergy people within one part of one state of one country. It's it's that it's that big a thing. I don't want to lose track of all of the specifics, but I just want to mention that the abuse problem needs to identify those clergies who are violating, sexually violating, abusing, and traumatizing children. That's part of the problem. A big that's what creates the problem. But the healing problem is not about those clergy. It's about all the witnesses, I call those,
Mm.
who do what you're uh did you say your mom or forgive, maybe it didn't happen. I'm sure they couldn't have done that. The witnessing problem is what makes shame out of it. Otherwise, I'm like, I come to you and say I was violated, and if you're a non-shaming witness, then you believe me and you respond and you get
Mm-hmm.
furious and you want to stop those people and you care about me and you get me help. Then I'm like, oh, you believe me, I matter,
Mm-hmm.
nothing's wrong with me, I got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a sick person, I'm an injured person. And that's a very different self-consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm an injured person. I'm not a person who has something wrong with them. I have somebody who's been violated. That's a different identity, something. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that takes the witnesses, and the big problem in the church, and it wouldn't have to only be the Catholic Church. It could be temples, mosques, organizations, political organizations, companies, but nonetheless, so we know a lot more about it in the Catholic Church because of the amount that's come out in the research. How many of those stories have been moved, pushed aside? Who are the people who've been told, who knew, who said, move that clergy person to another place? Let's deny that particular thing. Let's tell that child that they should forgive. And it's not only within the church, it's parents, it's medical doctors who have seen these children. Because I had clients that people go to all kinds of places. A person goes to the parent, and the person says, you know, so and so priest, clergy would, is such a good man, right? I had one client, these are so painful. People should get a trigger warning. I had one client um, who was sexually violated by a clergy person over about a year and a half. I think she was around 13, 14. I wrote about it in my earlier book. Um, and um, this is so gross. I almost don't want to say it, but it's real, so it should be said. And she went to her parents, and gosh, I don't want to say it. Her father said, I gotta whisper it. Her father said, "You're a slut." Phew, that's overwhelmingly painful. Wow.
So he just completely
Mhm.
turned it on her.
Yeah. So the clergy person causes
Wow.
the violence, but the father's response to the violence, I call it a witness, if she's vulnerable, and she was, right,
Mm,
puts in a message. I'm a deviant, sexually deviant person. I'm not an injured person.
mm,
Mhm. And she doesn't walk around thinking I'm full of shame. She walks around thinking I'm a sexually deviant person.
mm.
Well, she's not thinking, oh, I'm in the agony of shame. She's not thinking that. I can see that because I see how the witness created that experience. Um, so the witnessing problem um, in the church, we need people around who get it, right? Who say, wait a second, yeah, that's an intense story. I know even I could hardly tell it, but I was like, I had an inner conflict. Part of me don't want to tell it because it's too intense, and then a part of me is like, truths shouldn't be left out because it's too intense. We should just care about the telling of them.
Well, I think
Um,
that's a really important story because I did read in your book you talk about, like, for example, if you're giving a speech and someone comes in and says, "You don't know anything, you don't know what you're talking about," and everyone just is quiet and passive,
mhm,
how that is a shaming witness. Whereas if
mhm.
someone said, "Hey, what a jerk this guy is," yelling at the speaker or, sit down or whatever, it's showing this person is fucked up in what they did.
Yeah.
They were rude. They did something wrong instead of, "Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I what did I do to deserve this? People are seeing through me. I'm XYZ." It's such a different, and the shaming witness is something I've definitely experienced but have not been able to articulate. So I really appreciated that
Yeah.
element.
Yeah. I teach students how to do unshaming, as a facilitator. It's like a year-long program. And I always tell my students, the perpetrator of abuse creates the violation. The witness is that the healing problem is not the perpetrator. The violation is the perpetrator. They're not off the hook. The healing problem is how they're witnessed because that's how they've come to hold and believe in their experience. So then I may never come to you and tell you a story. I might just say, "Oh, I have a headache today." I might not ever tell you a story. I might not even be able to connect my stomach ache, your neck and its boundary intelligence, my anxiety and my anger as part of my powers, my depression as part of my deep way of going in touch with my feelings. Well, if you unshame depression, often people get in touch with deep feelings. They drop
Mm,
down. Depression goes down. Now I'm not up. Hi, I'm doing fine today. That's up for some people, right? For some people, being up means putting away their deeper experience. Hi, Callie, everything's fine. I'm having a great day. How are you? I'm smiling all the
mhm,
time. This kind of person that I'm mocking a bit, right, is trying to be up, right? Hi. My voice goes up, my head goes up, everything says be up. I'm not just saying
mhm,
I'm doing well today. That's even, but hi, yeah, yeah. I'm lifting myself. Lifting
mhm,
myself up means that there's something else that's lower. Otherwise, it wouldn't lift it. I'm down. I'm not saying I'm depressed, like clinically, but there's a down part. So if I stop lifting myself, I settle down. Oh, I had a difficult time yesterday. It's really been hard what's
mm,
going on post-election. It's really feeling hopeless. I'm like more depressed, quote unquote. I'm going down. But in that down are feelings, hopelessness, pains about elections, caring about what's happening to the earth, that's really difficult for me to experience. If you help me go down, not anti-depress, unshame depression, believe in depression, then the person goes down and maybe they become an earth activist because they realize how painful that is. So things grow out of that particular area. Um, all those are witnessing problems, how we witness the experiences. If it's created by something else, the earth problem and pain is created by systems, capitalistic systems, and exploitive systems, then organizations, those are violators, those are abusive, those are perpetrators. And then my
Mhm.
body experiences pain, literally because I can't breathe, or because I'm feeling low down, or I'm worried a lot and it matters to me, or I have children and I'm afraid they won't live. Those are real deep experiences that live inside of me. But I should get going and try to say everything's going to be okay, but I don't feel that inside.
Mhm.
Right? So then we unshame, we go into that. Now we should share that experience. We should go on to Instagram and say, who else wants to sit around and weep for a few days about what's happening in Alaska to the fish, or the fires here, or the floods that are going on in the Philippines, or right? And then we have a community, we have a kind of an activism that grows out of that solidarity and community, out of the down, right? Out of the grief and the sadness, because we witness that violation um,
Mm.
in a new way. We need a lot of witnessing around what's happening to the earth, trees, the animals, the oxygen, and ourselves in relationship to that. Phew. So many people are suffering from that and don't connect it at all. They don't know that that their physical body is not just is related to the earth partially, like I said, like asthma. Some places people are
Mhm.
getting more asthma. That's more obvious, right? There's less oxygen in the air. I have sensitive lungs, meaning I'm aware that other people aren't. My
Mhm.
lungs know about climate change, even if my head didn't. And they kind of go, it's harder to breathe in this world. Uh,
Mhm.
Lots of people get all kinds of symptoms um, related to the change in the earth because they're more shamanic as people, meaning they feel and experience in their being the changes. Yeah.
Mm.
They're canary. We used to call them canaries in the coal mine. The
Mhm.
send the canary down. This is not a positive canary story, right? We send the canary down
No.
to see if it dies in the coal mine. That means I
Yeah.
can walk down there. But many people are screaming about those things in their bodies, and they're just told that they have a physical problem or psychological problem. They're not rooted to a planet. Um,
Mhm.
and they individualize, they go off alone and don't realize that they're feeling something that weaves a connection to animals, to other people, and to the earth. Instead, we isolate them. You're a sick person, go off until you get better, then get back to work. That's too
Mm.
gross. But that's what happens for many people, even inside
Yeah.
them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was just in a 6 month, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Luis Mojica, but he's a,
Oh yeah, I love that man. Yeah.
yeah, he's so good. I was just in his 6 month body practitioner group, and it was just very similar to what you're talking about with how can I, it was for entrepreneurs to get more connected to the somatic experience of their
Mhm.
bodies and running their businesses from a place that respects their body's capacity. And it was just really interesting that like 90% of the work was essentially coming to acceptance that my body's capacity is not able to, it's not the same as my desire for what I want to do, and it's also not the same as what pressure of capitalism wants me to do or make. And so he actually opens the program by saying you probably will make less money in this coaching
Mhm.
container where most
No,
Oh, I
no.
was like, "Wait, what?" Sorry,
I
there's
understand though.
opening
I'm
with
enjoying
this?
it.
Yeah.
Less money. That's like a nightmare, for my heritage. Anyway, I won't go into that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually ended up moving cities. I was in Southern California in Orange County, which is very, very expensive. And just throughout his group, I was like, I am burning myself out and for what? And so I actually moved up to Sacramento and now it's cheaper. I work less. I'm more nourished by nature. And yeah, I mean, it's just interesting the the unconscious pressure to just make more and do more and live a certain way. And yeah.
Mhm. Callie, that's a beautiful story, and I would call that a self-love story. It's a love story. You're saying I got closer to myself and I did something. I reacted, I responded to make
Mhm.
life different um, for myself. Um, I listened, I learned, and I responded to care for protect myself, care for my wellness, care for my clients, right? Because I'm more here, I'm more present with the difficulties. Thanks for
Mhm.
doing that. What a huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for witnessing that. I
Yeah.
wanna touch on one last topic before
Oh
we
yeah.
wrap.
Okay. Mm.
And this one's kind of selfish, so just indulge me for a moment.
Okay. I'm
But,
indulgent.
I'm a huge fan of Taylor Swift, um,
Mm,
and I've followed her journey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her beyond just, like, her surface level, she's very in pop culture, but her kind of arc as a performer was, she came in really young to the industry, and she was the good girl, and she was just trying to do everything that everyone wanted of her to become the pop star that she is today, essentially. And what I really appreciate about her as an artist and her recent albums is that she really goes into everything that people have said about her, nasty things in the press. She,
mm,
talks about her narcissism, her anger, all of her fuck ups
mm,
in
mm,
song, and she claims them, and she
mm,
it's so artful and amazing, and I just think it's a great expression of what can
mm.
happen when you de-shame these parts that people are like, "This is so nasty of you, you should hide this," and she's like, "No, I'm putting this in my album." And so I'm just curious if you have seen similar, experiences with your clients or anyone else that like, what happens after they transmute this shame.
Yeah. I mean, that's one beautiful way in two ways. One, the claiming of the qualities and in their beauty, not in their judgmentalness, but in the beauty, the essence, the power, the beauty, the intelligence in them. Um, I don't know Taylor Swift well, but what you're saying is, and then she also turns that into art and expression, right? So she does that, but then for her, there's an artist's voice that enters the world. That's not uncommon. Some people express, go, as you said, transmute, alchemize some difficulty that's looked at as a bad thing. You're a narcissist, and you were saying around her, you're nasty. And some people unshame those, integrate and own those qualities, at least the essence energy. It may not be in the initial form. Um, and then they live differently as you did. You move, and then some people make outer expression and art and activism. For instance, it would
Mm,
have to be activism. It could be that. It could be the way you treat one person. It could be the way you treat your child. It could be the way you garden. Could be the way you treat yourself when you're preparing your taxes. So how that integrates um, um, is, for me, because I'm a writer, um, for me, it means learning about something and then having to say it. So I make reels a lot. I just finished my fourth book. I'm like, I can't not want to say things if I get close to myself because my nature wants to write, not because I think I should or it's a good idea or it's good for my business. Something in me wants to write. So when I'm freed up more, I want to scream about things. This is what's happening. So then find ways of doing that, David, right? Um, Yeah. Just thinking about your question more, finding people like that. I used to, I still listen to it. I used to listen a lot to, oh gosh, The Woman's Mind, which went away. She, a great black female singer and artist, Lauryn Hill. I don't know if you know Lauryn Hill. She made this incredible album called The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Brilliant hip hop album. And she was part of the Fugees and then went left and did that, worked on her own and did this radical statement about the world and life. And she became like a mega star at that album. You know, like, not like a Taylor Swift level, but she was moving up into that, like into the stratosphere. And she walked away from all of it. And when she
Wow.
had her first child, who was named Zion, and she wrote a song about Zion, right? And she in that song she says, um, people said, "Use your head, Lauren," and she said, "Instead, I chose to use my heart. Now, now my life is about Zion, the philosophy of Zion with the child, and and now if you look for her, she's a little bit more militant. She doesn't have as bigger an audience, you know what I mean? So I'm like, and I'm just about 70. I'm still learning what you learned about moving, what Louise teaching you, um, what Lauryn Hill did. Those are you, and those people are like heroes for me. I mean that about you also. I need the inspiration to, because I get a lot more opportunities as the years go on. I didn't come out very much when I was young. It took me a long time to have a publicness. Um, I was more hidden, not more shame in my system. So people just thought I was shy. I wasn't. I was scared and shamed. Can you hear the difference in that label?
Mhm.
David's just a shy kid.
Mhm.
That leaves off the fact that I'm terrified and not allowed to show it, right? The second
Mhm.
part is a genuine description. The first part makes me think, oh, I'm shy. I wonder why I'm so awkward, right?
Well, what I'm hearing you say in all of this is
Mhm.
when we start to de-shame, we start to come back to our true nature, and then whatever expression, whether it's taking care of your child or creating a book or writing music, it's such a gift to everyone else. Like your book is such a gift, and Taylor Swift's music to me is such a gift, and Lauryn Hill
Yes.
album is such a gift to you, and I'm sure a lot of other people. So it's just really interesting, like this coming back to ourself with curiosity just naturally
Mhm.
births this beautiful expression.
Yeah. I love the way you said that, coming back to ourselves with curiosity. I tell my students there's one essential unshaming question, then you need skills to investigate it. And the question is, what's it like to be you when your neck hurts, David, when you're overworked, when your stomach hurts? What's it like being you? And then skills are good. Somatic skills, what's it? I'll help you know what it's like to you. We can feel that in your body, or you can use your
Mhm.
voice and make sounds, or you can scream or dance, or you can tell me thoughts, or you can write poems, or but but the central question, what's it like being you, as opposed to how do we get rid of this thing? I drink too much alcohol, somebody says. What's it like when you drink alcohol? I'm not thinking you should. I'm not thinking you should or shouldn't. If you're putting needles in your arm and methamphetamines, you're injecting those. I don't want them to do that because they could die of an
Mm.
overdose. But I want to know, what's it like when you have that chemical rushing through your blood? I want to know, not encourage. I'm saying, go ahead and do it. It's fine. I'm not an
Yeah.
idiot. I don't want that person to die. But they're having an experience. And I need to know what it is that they're willing to die for, because they are. They don't know. Unshaming will tell me that. So, what's it like when you're depressed? What's it like when you're frightened and you think when you call shyness, David, what's it like? And then I show you a terrified person, right? You're like, oh, I didn't know. I thought I was just shy. Then I
Mhm.
show you, and I'm like curled up shivering. That doesn't look like a shy person. It looks like a terrified human being. That's good for me to know, isn't it? Because that's a very different understanding. So that
Mhm.
question, what's it like being you under this condition? In most healing methods, I gotta say, I don't like to be critical, so critical, genuinely. Don't ask that question. They say, here's the answer. Here's the protocol. Oh, you procrastinate, here's what to do.
Yep.
Instead of asking, what happens when you procrastinate? Do you scroll? Do you
Mhm.
eat? Do you sleep? Do you look at porn? What is it that you actually do? So so I can actually get to know you instead of
Mhm.
cure you, so to speak.
Mhm.
Let's get to know you, and then we'll find medicine.
Yeah. That's why I really appreciate somatics. One thing that Louis says a lot that I really appreciate is it's not who am I, it's how am I. So
Mm,
how am I experiencing this conversation? Maybe it's different now than it was 2 minutes ago. And just
mm,
always being open to my experience changing and my capacity changing. And yeah,
mm.
it's really, I appreciate that.
Oh, we have
Um,
another connection with, is it Luis? I never talked to him in words. Is that how you say his name? Luis?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
Louis.
cool.
Um, I want to start to wrap up
Yes.
badly, but um, so where can people find you on social media? Your social media presence is really beautiful, so I really encourage everyone listening to find you on social media. Your videos are just amazing. And then where can people find your book?
Yeah. On Instagram, it's under my name, David, and the last name is Bedrick, Bedrick, like bedrock with an I. Um, so people can find me there. My new book is called The Unshaming Way, Unshaming Way, and that you can find just about anywhere, any bookstore. Amazon would have it. Um, not everyone loves Amazon because of their capacity to overrun other smaller publishers,
Mhm.
and they're the biggest offer of books, so you can't. It's hard to get around them. But Amazon, but all Barnes and Nobles and local bookstores and libraries, you can find it, or you can ask for that. Um,
Beautiful. Any
Gabor Mate
final
recently wrote an endorsement of my book just about a month before it came out, so I was proud
that's
of that. And yeah,
that's super cool.
yeah.
Any last thoughts before we close?
Mhm. Because the earth is on my mind, it always is on my mind and heart, but sometimes I'm thinking about it a little less and other things because we don't think of the earth and psychology as woven together. But the thought that's in my mind is treat your body like your earth. There's an outer earth with plants and magma and mountains and storms and but the body is also a kind of an earth, a kind of a mother in that way, the soma itself. And it's endangered also and has symptoms just like the earth does. The earth has symptoms by fish dying or coral reef bleaching. And our bodies have symptoms like our earth. It's smart. It's not just an illness, it needs change in the environment. The fish dying is not an illness of the fish, it's an illness of the way our seas are treated. The culture is
Mm,
sick. The fish are dying because of the culture. And I think our bodies are like that. I think it's a good thing to do for the earth to connect with our bodies um, and treat that the elementalness of that, our physical symptoms, our emotional difficulties, um, as something to get to know and listen to.
yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Callie. Lovely to talk with